80 years have now passed since a profound and terrible change was brought upon two cities in Japan. On the 6th of August, on the 9th of August, in the year 1945, our world witnessed for the first time the devastating power of a new and terrible kind of weapon, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Before those fateful days, they were vibrant centers of life. Hiroshima, a bustling riverside city, streets filled with trams, bicycles, families going about their daily routines. Nagasaki, a deep natural harbor, a historic port, industry, culture spanning centuries, wooden houses, quiet temples, thriving communities, utterly unaware of the unimaginable force about to descend. The memory of what happened here is more than a historical record. It is a solemn duty we carry. They did not just destroy buildings. They did not just end lives. They altered the course of human history, introducing a shadow we have lived under ever since. To truly comprehend the significance of this anniversary, we must first return to the events themselves, recounted not with spectacle, but with the quiet clarity of fact. At 8:15 in the morning on August 6, 1945, a single American B-29 bomber, the Enola Gay, flew high over the city of Hiroshima. The sky was clear and blue. The city below was just beginning its day. The aircraft released its payload, an atomic bomb nicknamed Little Boy. It fell for 43 seconds before detonating in a silent, blinding flash approximately 600 meters above the city. In that instant, a fireball hotter than the surface of the sun was born. Heat, light, and unimaginable force. The immediate effects were cataclysmic. The thermal pulse incinerated everything near the hypocenter, leaving only shadows burned onto stone. The supersonic blast wave flattened almost every structure within a 2-kilometer radius. Wooden homes, schools, hospitals. The immense pressure shattered windows over 10 kilometers away. Fires erupted across the city, whipped by ferocious winds, merging into a single monstrous firestorm. For those on the ground, it was as if the sun had fallen from the sky, bringing a destructive power beyond all human comprehension. At 11:02 in the morning, the second atomic bomb, Fat Man, was detonated over the Urakami Valley, an industrial area, a residential area. Though Nagasaki's hilly terrain somewhat contained the blast, the destruction was no less absolute in the valley itself. The bomb, more powerful than the one used on Hiroshima, obliterated factories, churches, homes, instantly ending tens of thousands of lives. The city, known for its historic international port and rich Christian heritage, was torn apart in a matter of seconds. These were not conventional bombings. The atomic weapons unleashed a force entirely new to warfare. A single bomb, delivered by a single plane, accomplished the work of thousands of conventional bombs with a horrifying efficiency and a sinister, invisible after effect. The mushroom clouds that rose into the stratosphere over Hiroshima and then Nagasaki became the defining symbols of a new age, the atomic age. They represented a stark and terrifying truth, that humanity now possessed the means to extinguish itself. The world had been changed, fundamentally and forever, and the silence that fell over the ruins of two cities echoed across the entire globe. Look back not with judgment, but with a clear, steady gaze, to comprehend the magnitude of what was lost and the enduring lessons for all humanity. The numbers associated with these events are staggering, and it is important that we pause to consider them. In Hiroshima, it is estimated that between 70,000 and 80,000 people died on the day of the bombing. In Nagasaki, the initial death toll was around 40,000. Yet these figures only mark the beginning of the tragedy. In the weeks and months that followed, tens of thousands more would perish from severe burns, injuries, a mysterious and terrifying illness, acute radiation sickness. By the end of 1945, the total number of deaths had climbed to an estimated 140,000 in Hiroshima and 74,000 in Nagasaki. These are not just statistics. Each number represents a unique life. These were not soldiers on a battlefield. They were ordinary people, in their homes, on their way to work, playing in schoolyards. They were mothers, fathers, sons, daughters. Entire families vanished in an instant. Community leaders, doctors, teachers, artisans, the very fabric of a city's society, were gone. For the survivors, the world they had known just moments before had been completely and utterly erased, replaced by rubble, fire, unimaginable human suffering. The physical injuries were horrific. Intense thermal radiation caused severe burns, often tracing the patterns of dark clothing. The blast wave inflicted countless wounds from flying glass and debris. Numbers can quantify the dead, but they cannot convey the experience of living through the inferno. For that, we must turn to the quiet, courageous voices of the survivors. Their stories, shared with great difficulty, are a sacred testament to human endurance. One survivor, a young girl at the time, recalled seeing a brilliant flash of light like 1,000 lightning bolts at once. She was knocked unconscious. When she awoke, she was in darkness, buried under the rubble of her collapsed home. She described a deafening silence, followed by the faint cries of her mother calling her name. They were among the lucky ones who managed to crawl out into a world that had become unrecognizable. Another story is that of a young man working in a factory on the outskirts of Hiroshima. The blast threw him across the room, but he was largely uninjured. He made his way toward the city center in search of his family, walking into a nightmare. He spoke of seeing people with their skin hanging off in strips. He described ghost-like figures with their arms outstretched, begging for water. The black rain, sticky, radioactive drops that stained everything they touched. He never found his family. In Nagasaki, a doctor and his surviving staff tore their own clothing for bandages, offering only water and words to the dying. The news of the atomic bombing sent a shockwave across the entire planet. While the use of the bombs did precipitate the end of the Second World War, it also immediately opened a new and deeply troubling chapter in human affairs. Leaders and citizens grappled with this new weapon. Initial reports were heavily censored, but as the true scale emerged, awe and profound fear spread globally. The bombs were not just more powerful, they were different in kind. A complex international debate began. Some argued they were a necessary evil that ended a brutal war and saved lives. Others, including many scientists who built them, were horrified and warned of a future arms race. Nuclear deterrence took shape. The paradox that peace might be maintained through the threat of mutual annihilation. The Cold War hardened as superpowers amassed vast arsenals capable of destroying the world many times over. Generations grew up under the shadow of the mushroom cloud. A global movement for nuclear disarmament grew. Scientists, politicians, artists, citizens, culminating in treaties like the Partial Test Ban of 1963 and the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty of 1968. The ruins of Hiroshima and Nagasaki stood as a stark, silent argument for peace, diplomacy, and the urgent need for international cooperation. This reflection is a journey into a pivotal moment for our species, revealing our capacity for self-destruction on a planetary scale. The devastation of Hiroshima and Nagasaki did not end when the fires went out. The bombs left behind an invisible and an insidious legacy: radiation. For the survivors, the end of the war was not the end of their suffering. In the years and decades that followed, many developed serious long-term health problems, an increased incidence of various cancers, particularly leukemia, thyroid cancer. It was a cruel fate to have survived the blast only to be stalked by a silent illness years later. The effects passed across generations. Pregnant women who were exposed gave birth to children with developmental problems and other health issues. Fear and uncertainty about genetic effects led to social stigma, difficulties finding employment or marriage partners. The tragedy spurred scientific inquiry. Organizations like the Radiation Effects Research Foundation, formerly the Atomic Bomb Casualty Commission, conducted long-term studies of survivors and their children. Research born of tragedy informed safety standards for nuclear power, medicine, and occupational health worldwide. The land and environment bore scars. It was said nothing would grow for 75 years, and yet life proved resilient. The following spring, green shoots emerged. Oleander flowers bloomed amidst the rubble, symbols of hope and rebirth. While the cities were rebuilt and the land recovered, the unseen, lingering poison of radiation remains a warning. The consequences of nuclear weapons extend far beyond the initial blast. To ensure that the lessons of 1945 are never forgotten, Hiroshima and Nagasaki have become global centers for peace education. Central to this mission are the Peace Memorial Parks and Museums. The Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum stands near the iconic A-bomb dome, a skeletal ruin preserved as a stark memorial. Inside, visitors are guided through the city's history, the events of the bombing, and the devastating human consequences. They see personal artifacts: a scorched tricycle, a student's tattered uniform, a watch stopped at 8:15. These objects speak with a silent, devastating power. This commitment to education is a living mission. As the number of Hibakusha dwindles, legacy successors have taken up the responsibility of sharing their stories. They undergo extensive training to convey the human reality of the atomic bombings to school children and visitors from around the world. The message is spread worldwide. Mayors for Peace now includes thousands of cities, committed to a world free from nuclear weapons, working at the grassroots to raise awareness and advocate for disarmament. They share educational materials, host exhibitions, and organize commemorations, building a culture of peace. Learning is active, reflection and engagement. We study the causes and consequences to understand the dangers of nationalism, the importance of diplomacy, and the moral responsibilities of science and technology. This mission is not just about remembering, it is about building a future resolved with dialogue, empathy, and a shared commitment to our common humanity. Out of the unimaginable destruction, a powerful story of resilience emerged. The rebuilding of Hiroshima and Nagasaki is a testament to the strength of the human spirit. With determination and international support, they rebuilt their homes, their schools, their industries. Today, the cities are vibrant, rebuilt not to erase the past, but to honor it. The cities themselves are memorials, parks, monuments, temples. Art and culture became tools to process trauma and preserve memory. Survivors and artists created a powerful body of work, literature, poetry, paintings, films that grappled with the experience. Novels like Masuji Ibusi's Black Rain and the manga Barefoot Gen gave the world an unflinching personal look at the horror and its aftermath. Each year on August 6th and 9th, the cities fall silent. The peace bell is rung. Survivors, children, and visitors offer prayers, lay wreaths, and release lanterns on the rivers. These rituals renew the vow for peace, a guiding light for the living. They chose not revenge, but peace, transforming tragedy into a universal message. The blooming oleanders of 1946 became a symbol of this choice. The choice to believe in life, to rebuild, to work tirelessly so that no other city, no other people, will ever endure what they experienced. Their resilience is a gift to the world. 80 years later, the world is a very different place. The Cold War has ended, but the shadow of nuclear weapons has not disappeared. Thousands still exist, many on high alert. New technologies, geopolitical tensions. The story of Hiroshima and Nagasaki is not a relic of the past. It is a vital and urgent warning for the present. The survivors fear being forgotten. On this anniversary, our first responsibility is to remember, to hold facts and human stories in our collective consciousness. Remembering is not enough. The lessons of 1945 demand action, not grand political gestures, but small, determined efforts that each of us can make. Children of different ethnicities planting a young tree in a sunny park. Choose to listen with empathy to those with whom we disagree. Support leaders and policies. Prioritize diplomacy. Prioritize de-escalation over conflict. Educate ourselves. Educate our children about the catastrophic humanitarian consequences of nuclear weapons. These are not abstract instruments of power, but tools of indiscriminate annihilation that must never be used again. The path to a safer world is built on a foundation of hope, in the rebuilt streets of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and in voices carrying survivors' stories forward. Sadako Sasaki, a young girl who died from leukemia after the bombing. Her cranes became a global symbol of peace,